Pedro, 23, walks quickly through the busy streets of the city center. He is wearing a simple waiter's uniform, with slightly faded black pants and a white shirt. He is carrying a worn backpack on his back. His face shows tiredness, but his eyes reveal determination. The rain suddenly starts to fall. First a few drops, then a downpour. Pedro looks up at the sky in frustration. He doesn't have an umbrella. He runs to take shelter under the awning of a closed store. Other people do the same. Among the crowd sheltering from the rain, Helena, 58, tries to hold several bags while her umbrella, turned by the wind, slips from her hands. Pedro observes the scene. Helena is well-dressed with quality clothes, but without ostentation. There is something elegant and at the same time simple about her figure. Pedro quickly approaches, retrieves the umbrella before it is blown away by the wind, and hands it to Helena with a gentle smile. "Thank you," she says, her voice calm. This rain took everyone by surprise. "No problem," Pedro replies. "Do you need help with those bags?" Helena hesitates for a moment, then accepts, if it's not too much trouble. "No way." Pedro picks up some of the bags, the heaviest ones. Helena tries to refuse, but he politely insists. "Where are you going?" he asks. "To that bus stop." She points to a stop about 200 meters away. Pedro accompanies Helena to the bus stop. On the way, she trips on an uneven sidewalk. Pedro, with quick reflexes, grabs her arm, preventing her from falling. "Are you okay, ma'am?" "I am," she replies, composing herself. "Thank you. My legs haven't been the same lately." At the bus stop, there is only one bench, occupied by a man who pretends to be sleeping. Pedro places the bags on the floor next to Helena. "I insist that you free up the seat for this lady," Pedro says to the man on the bench, firmly but not aggressively. The man opens his eyes, irritated, but upon seeing Pedro's determination, he gets up grumbling and walks away. "You didn't have to," Helena says, but sits down, visibly relieved. "Of course you did. The rain is heavy and you shouldn't be standing." Helena smiles gratefully. "What's your name, young man?" "Peter. Peter Oliveira." "Thank you very much for your kindness, Pedro Oliveira. I'm Helena." A bus approaches. "Is that yours?" asks Pedro. Helena shakes her head. "Not yet." Pedro looks at his watch, worried. "I have to go. I'm late for work." "Where do you work?" "At the Cantina Italiana restaurant, nearby." He points in the opposite direction. "It's a simple place, but the food is good." "I see. Well, I don't want to delay you." Helena opens her purse and takes out a 50 real note. "Please accept it as a thank you." Pedro politely backs away. "No, ma'am, I didn't do it for the money." "I know that, and that's exactly why I want to give back." Pedro continues to refuse, kindly. "I did what anyone would do. Please keep your money." Helena keeps the note with an enigmatic smile. "Okay, thanks again, Pedro." "You're welcome, Mrs. Helena. Have a good day." Pedro runs away in the rain, already completely soaked, towards the restaurant. Minutes later, Pedro hurries into the Cantina Italiana restaurant. It is a modest establishment, with wooden tables, red and white checkered tablecloths, and typical Italian decor. The place is almost empty, as it is still early for lunch. Carlos, 45 years old, owner of the restaurant, a rigid man with a tired appearance, approaches Pedro with severe expression. "You're late again, Pedro." "Sorry, Mr. Carlos. The rain, the bus, the sick grandmother, always an excuse. It's only 10 minutes. 10 minutes today, 15 yesterday. I'm tired of warning." Mariah, 38, the restaurant's cook, intervenes discreetly. "Calm down, Carlos. The boy is all wet. Let him change first." Carlos grumbles, but nods in agreement. Pedro thanks Marcia with his eyes and goes to the small employee changing room at the back of the restaurant. In the simple and cramped locker room, Pedro quickly changes his clothes. His spare uniform is a little wrinkled, but it is what he has. As he is getting ready, Lucas, 25, another waiter and friend of Pedro, enters. "Hey, late again?" Carlos was a beast. Well, I help a lady on the street and ended up being late. Lucas smiles, shaking his head. Always the good Samaritan. One day your kindness will get you into trouble. We've already talked about this. Lucas, I'd rather be late to help someone than pretend I didn't see it. And what was this lady like? Rich, at least. Pedro shrugs. Well-dressed, polite. But what does that matter? It matters that you could have earned a tip, and she offered money. I refused. Lucas slaps his forehead in exasperation. You're impossible. Living in that tiny room, barely paying for college, and refusing money. I didn't help for money. I know. That's exactly the problem with you. Lucas smiles despite the criticism. Let's go, before Carlos decides to fire us for real. The two leave the locker room. The restaurant starts to fill up for lunchtime. The day passes quickly at the restaurant. Pedro goes from table to table, taking orders, serving dishes, always with a smile on his face despite his tiredness. Some people are kind. Others don't even look at his face when ordering. At the end of the day, Carlos calls Pedro into his small office at the back of the restaurant. The place is cramped, with a desk, an old computer, and piles of papers and bills. Pedro, sit down, Carlos says in a serious tone. Pedro obeys, tense. Look, you're a good waiter. The customers like you, you're polite, attentive, but... Pedro anticipates. But these constant delays cannot continue. There are other guys who want the job, who live closer, who don't arrive late. Mr. Carlos, I know I made a mistake today, but I swear it won't happen again. Carlos sighs. You said that last week, and the week before that. It's just that I live far away, and sometimes the bus... Everyone has problems, Pedro. I have bills to pay, a restaurant to run. It's nothing personal. Pedro takes a deep breath. What do you mean? I'm giving you one last warning. Next time you're late, I'll have to replace you. I understand. Pedro swallows hard. It won't happen again. I promise. I hope not. You can go. Pedro leaves the office with his head down. As he passes through the kitchen, Marcia calls him. Hey, Pedro. How are you? More or less. Mr. Carlos gave me an ultimatum because of the delays. Marcia smiles with maternal tenderness. He growls, but he doesn't bite. He just tries to be on time. And here you go. She hands Pedro a lunchbox. There's some pasta left over. Take it home. Thank you, Marcia. Pedro smiles grateful. How is your grandmother? Improving little by little. The treatment is expensive, but we are finding a way. What about college? Locked up for now. But next year I'll go back to studying, God willing. Marcia squeezes Pedro's shoulder affectionately. Everything will be okay. Boy, you deserve it. Pedro thanks him again and leaves the restaurant. It's already night. Pedro walks to the bus stop. The rain has stopped, but the city is damp and cold. There is a considerable line at the stop. Pedro sighs, tired, knowing that he will have to wait a long time. After almost an hour, he finally manages to get on a crowded bus. He stands up, holding onto the bars, balancing his lunchbox in his free hand. The journey is long. The bus passes through increasingly poorer neighborhoods until it reaches the outskirts of the city. Pedro gets off on a poorly lit street and continues on foot for a few blocks. He arrives at an old house, modest in appearance but well kept. He enters silently and goes straight to a room in the back, where Dona Maria, 75 years old, his grandmother, is lying on a simple bed. Next to her, there is a small table with medicines organized. Hi, Grandma, Pedro says softly, in case she's sleeping. Dona Maria opens her eyes and smiles when she sees her grandson. Hi, my son. How was work today? Normal. Pedro doesn't mention the ultimatum he received. How are you feeling? Better, thank God, and those expensive medicines you buy. Pedro smiles. Marcia sent you some pasta. Are you hungry? A little bit. Pedro helps his grandmother sit on the bed and goes to the small kitchen to heat up the food. He comes back with a steaming plate. Let me eat alone, insists Dona Maria. You must be tired. Go take a bath. Pedro hesitates, but obeys. He goes to his room, a tiny space with only a single bed, a small wardrobe, and a makeshift desk made from boxes. On the walls are magazine clippings with images of universities and news about business administration, the course he had to drop out of after his bath. Pedro goes back to check on his grandmother, who has already finished eating. "It was delicious," she says. "That Marcia cooks really well." "True." Peter picks up the plate. "Pedro, you didn't tell me how your day really was." Pedro smiles. He can't hide anything from his grandmother. "I had a little problem with the delay, but I've already resolved it." He is sure. "I do. And do you know what happened today? I helped a lady on the street during that heavy rain." "That's great, my son. God sees these things." "I didn't do it for God to see, Grandma." "I know, and that's why he notices." Pedro kisses his grandmother's forehead. "Do you need anything else before bed?" "No, my son. Just rest. Tomorrow is another day." "Good night, Grandma." "Good night, my dear." Pedro goes to his room, too tired to even eat. He lies on the bed, staring at the ceiling. He takes a business administration book that he borrowed from the public library and tries to study, but fatigue wins. He falls asleep with the book open on his chest. The next day, Pedro wakes up very early. He is determined not to be late again. She prepares black coffee for her grandmother, who is still sleeping, leaves the medicine separated with notes indicating the times, and leaves. He arrives at the restaurant 20 minutes early. Carlos notices this and nods in approval. The day goes by normally. The restaurant is busy and Pedro works nonstop, waiting tables, taking orders, always polite and attentive. During peak lunch hour, Pedro is so busy that he almost doesn't notice when Helena, the lady who helped in the rain the day before, enters the restaurant. She is accompanied by a man in a suit, Roberto, 60 years old, who looks like an executive. Carlos, noticing that they are well-dressed customers, hurries to welcome them personally and seats them at one of the best tables. Pedro is serving another table when he finally notices Helena. Surprised, he quickly finishes what he is doing and approaches her. "Dona Helena, what a surprise to see you here." Helena smiles, genuinely happy to see him. "Hello, Pedro. You told me so much about this place that I decided to give it a try." Roberto observes the interaction with curiosity. "Roberto, this is the young man I told you about, the one who helped me yesterday in the rain," explains Helena. Roberto extends his hand to Pedro. "It's a pleasure to meet you. Helena told me about your kindness." Pedro, a little embarrassed, shakes Roberto's hand. "It was no big deal, sir." "Can you help us?" asks Helena. "Sure." Pedro hands them the menus and waits a moment for them to decide. Carlos watches the scene from afar, intrigued by the familiarity between Pedro and the elegant clients. Helena and Roberto order typical Italian dishes and wine. Pedro serves them with special attention, but without neglecting the other tables. When they finish their meal, Helena asks for the bill. Peter brings her quickly. "Everything was delicious," Helena comments. "You were right about the food. I'm glad you liked it." Roberto leaves a premium credit card on the bill tray. Pedro takes it to Carlos to process. "Who are they?" asks Carlos as he swipes his card. "I met you yesterday in the rain. I helped you with some shopping. And that's why you came to have lunch here." Carlos looks suspicious. "I think so. I mentioned the restaurant." Carlos hands back the card and receipt. "Well, we should hire you for advertising." Pedro smiles and takes the card back to the table. "Thank you very much," says Roberto, putting away the card. Helena hands Pedro an envelope. "Pedro, I know you turned down my offer yesterday, but I'd like you to accept this. It's not money, I promise." Pedro hesitantly takes the envelope. "What is it?" "Open it when you're alone," Helena replies with a mysterious smile. "Maybe it's an opportunity." "Thank you, Mrs. Helena." Pedro puts the envelope in his uniform pocket. "I hope to see you again," says Helena, standing up. "Me too," adds Roberto. Pedro accompanies him to the restaurant door and says goodbye with a polite smile. During the rest of the day, Pedro is curious about the contents of the envelope, but resists the temptation to open it. Lucas provokes him several times. What's in the mysterious envelope? Money? A winning lottery ticket. I don't know. I'll open it at home. Come on, Pedro. Open it up. No. She asked me to open it when I was alone. Lucas rolls his eyes. You and your sense of honor. At the end of the day, Carlos calls Pedro back to the office. Those customers, do you really know them? He asks directly. Just you, ma'am. I helped yesterday, like I said. Carlos scratches his chin. And the man, who is he? I don't know. She introduced him as Roberto. Carlos turns on his computer and shows Pedro a news story on a financial website. In the photo is Roberto, identified as Roberto Mendez, CEO of a major construction company. Do you know who you met today? Pedro reads the news, surprised. I had no idea. And the woman? Do you know who she is? Peter shakes his head. Neither do I. But if you hang out with people of that caliber, she seemed like an ordinary person. Simple even. Carlos laughs. The very rich usually do. Pedro leaves the office thoughtfully. The envelope in his pocket seems to weigh more now. On the bus ride home, Pedro finally gives into his curiosity and opens the envelope. Inside is an elegant card with the name Helena Vasconcelos and the title Executive Director of the Estrella Hotel chain. There is also a formal invitation for a job interview the next day at 2 p.m. at the company's headquarters. Pedro is perplexed. According to the invitation, the vacancy is for an administrative assistant, exactly in the area he was studying at college. When he gets home, Pedro tells his grandmother about the unexpected meeting and shows her the invitation. See, says Dona Maria with a satisfied smile. Didn't I say that God notices these things? But Grandma, it's a coincidence. I mentioned the restaurant. She went there. Coincidence? And how did she know you were studying business? It's written on the invitation. Pedro realizes that he hadn't mentioned his studies to Helena. Strange. Are you going to the interview? I don't know. I have to work tomorrow. Talk to your Carlos. He will understand. Pedro doubts this, but agrees to try. The next day, early in the morning, Pedro looks for Carlos and explains the situation. So the mysterious lady offered you a job? Carlos looks skeptical. An interview at least. Pedro shows the invitation. Carlos examines the card and invitation carefully. His expression changes when he sees the company name. Star Hotel chain? Pedro, that's big. I know that. That's why I need to go. I can make up the hours later. Come on Sunday. Carlos returns the invitation. No need. Go to the interview. Pedro is surprised by the understanding. Really? Look, Pedro, I'm tough sometimes, but I'm not an idiot. This is an opportunity you can't turn down. But Carlos hesitates. But if it doesn't work out, your spot is still here. Pedro smiles gratefully. Thank you, Mr. Carlos. Now you go to work. You have several hours until the interview. Pedro works during the morning, nervous and anxious. Lucas and Marcia notice his state. Are you sick? Asks Marcia, worried. Pedro tells him about the interview. Lucas is amazed. Man, you're the luckiest guy I've ever met. Or the most blessed. I bet it's your grandmother who prays so much for you, comments Marcia. At 12:30, Pedro asks permission to leave. He quickly goes to a public bathroom and changes into the only formal clothes he owns. Black pants, a white shirt and a simple blazer, a little worn on the sleeves. He doesn't have a tie. He takes a bus to the city's commercial center, where the Estrella Hotel chain is located, an imposing building with a glass facade. Pedro feels intimidated when he enters the luxurious lobby. At the reception, an elegant receptionist greets you with a professional smile. Can I help you? I have an interview with Mrs. Helena Vasconcelos. Pedro shows the invitation. The attendant checks something on her computer and then makes a call. Mrs. Vasconcelos is waiting for you, 20th floor. Pedro thanks her and heads to the elevator, increasingly nervous. On the 20th floor, another receptionist directs him to a luxurious waiting room with leather armchairs and a panoramic view of the city. Minutes later, a door opens and Helena appears. She is elegant, wearing a discreet but obviously expensive navy blue suit. Pedro, I'm glad you came, she says, with the same gentle smile from their first meeting. Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Helena. I confess I was surprised. I imagined so. Please come in. Pedro follows her to a spacious, well-decorated office. There's a large table with several organized papers, a bookshelf with books, and, on the wall, photos of the chain's hotels. Please have a seat. Helena gestures to a comfortable chair in front of her desk. Pedro obeys, trying to hide his nervousness. I imagine you have a lot of questions, Helena begins. Yes, ma'am. How? How did you know I was studying business? Helena smiles. After we met, I was intrigued by your attitude. It's rare to see such kind and selfless young people these days. I decided to get to know you better and sent my assistant to get some information. I hope you won't be offended. No, but it's a little weird. I understand, but when you get to my position, you learn to size people up quickly, and you impress me. Pedro doesn't know what to say. Helena continues. I heard that he was studying business administration, but he dropped out, that he takes care of his sick grandmother, that he is an exemplary employee, except for a few delays, and that he refused money from a stranger as an act of kindness. How do you know all this? I have my resources. By the way, Roberto is not just a friend. He is the head of our human resources department. Pedro finally understands. So lunch was a test, yes, and you passed. Roberto was as impressed as I was with your attitude and service. Dona Helena, I don't understand. Why are you so interested in me? Helena gets up and walks to the window, looking at the city below. Pedro, I built this company from scratch. I started as a receptionist at a small hotel 40 years ago. The owner, Mr. Augusto, saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. He gave me opportunities, taught me, and trusted me. When he passed away, he left me a stake in the company. With a lot of hard work, I expanded the business until it became what it is today. Helena turns to Pedro. But you know what I've never forgotten? The day Mr. Augusto gave me my first chance, when I was just a poor young girl trying to help my family. He said that character comes before ability. Pedro listens, fascinated by the story. When you helped me in the rain, without wanting anything in return, I saw a lot of what Mr. Augusto valued. I saw character. Thank you, Mrs. Helena, but anyone would have done the same. No, Pedro, they wouldn't, and that's why I'm offering you an opportunity. Helena returns to her desk and hands Pedro a folder. This is a formal proposal. Administrative assistant, above market salary, hours that will allow you to return to your studies, and health insurance that will cover your grandmother's treatment. Pedro opens a folder, astonished. The salary is more than triple what he earns at the restaurant. That's unbelievable. This is just the beginning. If you show the same commitment and character you have shown so far, you can quickly rise within the company. I don't know what to say. Say yes, and prove that I wasn't wrong about you. Pedro looks at the proposal again, and then at Helena. Thank you for this chance. I promise I will give it my all. I know you will. Helena smiles. Can you start on Monday? Sure, but... Pedro hesitates. I need to give the restaurant some advance notice. Fair enough. Talk to your employer. If you need more time, we can wait. Pedro leaves Helena's office in shock. In the elevator, he looks again at the proposal in his hands, barely believing what happened. On the ground floor, when leaving the building, you find Roberto waiting in the lobby. So, Pedro, did you accept the proposal? He asks, with a friendly smile. Yes, sir. It's an incredible opportunity. Great. Helena has a talent for recognizing potential. I've seen it before. Roberto hands Pedro a card. If you need anything, I'm here to help. Thank you, sir. Roberto, please. We are colleagues now. Pedro smiles, still assimilating the new reality. Roberto. Pedro returns to the restaurant, eager to tell Carlos and his colleagues about the proposal. Upon arriving, he finds Carlos worried. So, how is it? Pedro shows a folder with the proposal. Carlos reads, whistling in admiration. Wow, Pedro, that's impressive. I accept. I start on Monday. Carlos seems genuinely happy for him. I knew you'd go far one day, kid, but I didn't think it would be this fast. I can work until Sunday, so as not to leave you in the lurch. No need. Tomorrow is your last day. Then go take care of your grandmother. Prepare for your new job. Marcia, who was listening to the conversation, approaches and hugs Pedro. May God bless you, my son. You deserve it. Lucas appears too. So, the Good Samaritan has finally been rewarded, huh? Pedro smiles at everyone, excited. I'm going to miss you all. You can come back to eat whenever you want, says Carlos. The house offers it on your first day. At the end of the day, Pedro goes home, eager to tell his grandmother. When he arrives, he finds her sitting in the small room, knitting. So, my son, how is it? Pedro shows a proposal. Dona Maria puts on her glasses to read, and when she understands what it is about, her eyes fill with tears. Pedro, that's wonderful. I knew it. She hugs her grandson tightly. Grandma, there's more. The company's health plan will cover your treatment, and the salary is enough for me to go back to school. Dona Maria cries with joy. Your grandfather would be so proud. You always said that honesty and hard work pay off. And they don't make up for it. Look what happened because of a simple act of kindness. Pedro smiles thoughtfully. You know, Grandma, Helena told me a similar story about how someone gave her a chance when she was young. See? Good begets good. It's like a chain that should never be broken. That night, Pedro can barely sleep, thinking about how his life has changed in just 5 days, all because of the chance encounter in the rain. On Monday, Pedro arrives early at the Estrella Hotel chain building, wearing the same worn-out blazer, but with renewed confidence. At the reception, he is directed to the Human Resources Department, where Roberto welcomes him. Good morning, Pedro. Ready for the first day? Yes, sir. I mean Roberto. A little nervous, but ready. Don't worry. Everyone gets nervous on the first day. Roberto takes him to meet the department and his new colleagues. Everyone welcomes him, although some are secretly curious about the young man hired directly by the executive director. Teresa, 35 years old, Pedro's direct supervisor, an efficient-looking woman with an observant gaze, shows her new desk and initial functions. Here is your computer, already configured with your login. Your temporary password is in this envelope. Basic systems training begins in 1 hour in the meeting room. Thank you, Mrs. Teresa. Just Teresa. We're formal with clients, informal among ourselves. She smiles slightly. Helena spoke well of you. I hope you live up to expectations. I will do my best. Great. Any initial questions? Pedro hesitates. Actually, I notice that everyone is very well dressed. I haven't had time to... Teresa understands immediately. Don't worry about that today. But yes, we do have a dress code. Roberto can give you the details later. During the day, Pedro participates in training sessions and learns about the company's systems. Everything is new, modern, and very different from the restaurant. He feels a little lost, but determined to learn. At the end of the day, Helena appears in the department. Everyone becomes visibly more formal with her presence. She walks directly to Pedro's desk. How was the first day? Intense, Mrs. Helena. A lot of new information, but I'm trying hard to assimilate it all. Great. Can I see you in my office for a moment? Pedro follows Helena up to the 20th floor, aware of the curious looks of his colleagues. In the office, she indicates that she should sit down. Pedro, I want to make something clear. I gave you this opportunity because I saw potential in you, but from now on, your success will depend exclusively on your effort. I understand, Mrs. Helena, and I appreciate the opportunity. I don't want other employees to think that you have any privileges because you were hired directly by me. Therefore, I will maintain professional distance from now on. Pedro nods. I understand perfectly. Great. Now, there's something more practical I need to take care of. Helena opens a drawer and takes out an envelope. This is an advance on your first salary. Use it to buy clothes appropriate for the office environment. Pedro is embarrassed. Dona Helena, it's not charity, Pedro. It's an investment in the company's image. Our employees represent Reed Estrella. Besides, it's just an advance. Pedro accepts the envelope. Thank you. I'll return every penny. I know you will. Now you can go. Tomorrow will be another intense day. In the following days, Pedro quickly adapts to his new routine. With the advance payment, he buys some simple but elegant formal clothes. His dedication impresses Teresa and his colleagues. Roberto discreetly accompanies him, offering guidance when necessary. 2 weeks after starting his new job, Pedro manages to take his grandmother to see a specialist, now covered by the company's health plan. The doctor, Dr. Oliveira, 58 years old, examines Dona Maria carefully. Your previous treatment was on track, but incomplete, the doctor explains. With the new medications and physical therapy I'm going to prescribe, you should see significant improvement in a few months. Dona Maria holds Pedro's hand, moved. See, my son? God has opened the doors. Yes, Grandma. It really did open. As he leaves the office, Pedro receives a message from Roberto. Helena wants to see you in your office tomorrow morning. Pedro spends the night worried, wondering why he was summoned. Had he done something wrong? The next morning, he arrives punctually at Helena's office. She greets him with a neutral, professional expression. Good morning, Pedro. Please have a seat. Pedro obeys, tense. I received the first report on your performance from Teresa. I am satisfied. Pedro relaxes a little. Thank you, Mrs. Helena. However, there is something that concerns me. Helena flips through some papers. You haven't signed up for the company's educational incentive program. Why? I didn't know I could. I thought I would need to work longer first. Helena smiles slightly. The program exists precisely for employees like you. The company pays 80% of the college tuition for courses related to our field. That would be amazing. Then get your registration done. Teresa has the necessary forms. I'll do it today. Thank you. Helena stands up, indicating that the meeting is over. Pedro, one last thing. Try. How is your grandmother? I heard you saw Dr. Oliveira. Pedro smiles, surprised and touched by the interest. He said she will get better with the new treatment. Excellent. You can go. 3 months pass. Pedro is fully adapted to his new job. He has returned to college at night, resuming his business administration course. Dona Maria shows visible improvements in her health and is now able to walk around the house without help. At work, Pedro stood out for his dedication and ability to learn quickly. Teresa entrusted him with increasing responsibilities, and his colleagues, initially suspicious, now respected him. One Friday after work, Pedro meets Lucas, his old colleague from the restaurant, in a bar near the city center. Look at you, Lucas says playfully. All dressed up executive now. Pedro laughs. No way. I'm still the same. I know. Lucas takes a sip of his beer. And to think that all of this happened because you help an old lady in the rain. Don't talk about her like that. Helena is an amazing person. Calm down. I didn't mean to offend. It's just that your story sounds like something out of a movie, you know? The poor waiter who helps a disguised millionaire and gains a new life. Pedro reflects for a moment. It wasn't quite like that. Helena gave me an opportunity, but I've worked hard to deserve it. What about college? Did you manage to get back? Yes, the company pays most of it. I'm in my 3rd semester now. And your grandmother? Much better. The new treatment is working. Lucas smiles, genuinely happy for his friend. You deserve it, man. You've always been the best of us. How is the restaurant? Same. Mr. Carlos hired another waiter. A good guy. But it's not you. Marcia always asks about you. I need to visit them one of these days. It should. They would be happy. The following Sunday, Pedro takes his grandmother for a walk in the city park. Dona Maria, visibly stronger, walks slowly, leaning on a cane. What a beautiful day, isn't it, Grandma? Wonderful, my son. It's been a long time since I've been out like this. To breathe fresh air. They sit on a bench in the shade of a large tree. Not far away, families are having a picnic. Children are running and playing. Pedro, are you happy? Asked Dona Maria, suddenly. Of course I am, Grandma. Things have gotten so much better for us. I'm not talking about material things. I'm talking about you, about your heart. Pedro thinks for a moment. I am, Grandma. I like my job. I'm going back to school, and you're better. What more could I want? Dona Maria smiles wisely. You know what your grandfather always said? Wealth without purpose is like water in a leaky basket. What do you mean by that, Grandma? But you've been given a blessing, and blessings come with responsibilities. Pedro reflects on his grandmother's words for the rest of the day. On Monday at work, Pedro is called to an important meeting. Helena is present, along with Roberto and other executives. The agenda is expansion of the chain to the northeast of the country, with the construction of 3 new hotels. During the meeting, Pedro, who is usually quiet on these occasions, notices a flaw in the cost calculations presented. He hesitates to speak up, but remembers his grandmother's words about responsibilities. Excuse me, he says shyly. Everyone looks at him, surprised. Helena gestures for him to continue. I believe there's an error in the logistics calculations for the Recife Hotel. Transportation costs are underestimated by at least 15%, considering the distance and local conditions. The presenter, Marcelo, 45 years old, looks at the spreadsheets, confused. He is sure. Yes, I recently did a college paper on logistics in the Northeast. The average values are much higher than projected. Roberto quickly checks the numbers on his tablet. Pedro is right. The values are well below the current market. Helena watches Pedro with renewed interest. Good work, Pedro. That could have caused a serious budget problem. The meeting continues, but Pedro notices that Helena is watching him more closely. At the end, she calls him aside. Impressive, your observation. Many would not have the courage to point out such an error in a board meeting. I thought it was my responsibility, Mrs. Helena, and you were right. She pauses. Pedro, I'd like you to join the expansion project team, not as an assistant, but as a junior analyst. It will be a promotion. Peter is surprised, but I've only been with the company for a few months. Senior experience is not as important as competence and initiative. Think about it and give me your answer tomorrow. That night, Pedro discusses the opportunity with his grandmother. It's a huge responsibility, Grandma. I don't know if I'm ready. If she wasn't, she wouldn't have offered. Dona Maria adjusts her glasses. Remember when your grandfather fixed cars? He always said that if a customer trusted him to fix an expensive car, he couldn't disappoint. But what if I fail? What if you don't try? What would be worse? Pedro smiles. You always know what to say. Years of practice, my son. Years of practice. The next day, Pedro accepts a promotion. Helena introduces him to the project team, led by Andiar, 50 years old, expansion director, a serious and demanding man. Helena speaks very highly of you, says Andre, analyzing Pedro. I hope you live up to expectations. I will do my best, sir. The following months are intense. Pedro works hard on the expansion project, occasionally traveling to the future hotel sites. He continues studying at night, now focusing more on subjects related to hotel management. On one of these trips, to Recife, Andre and Pedro visit the land where the new hotel will be built. During the visit, Pedro notices a problem. Mr. Andre, this land, the location is good, but it is very close to the sea. There is a risk of coastal erosion in the coming years. Andre frowns. How do you know that? I read an environmental study of the region for a college paper. This specific area is under alert. Andre checks the information on his cell phone and confirms that Pedro is right. Good job, Pedro. We'll need to reevaluate this place. Back in Sao Paulo, Andre reports the incident to Helena. The guy has a good eye, admits Andre. He saved us from a potentially costly mistake. Helena smiles. I told you he was special. A year has passed since Pedro found Helena in the rain. He now holds a respected position in the company as a senior analyst on the expansion team. His grandmother is almost fully recovered. Pedro is about to finish his business degree, specializing in hospitality. To celebrate her 1-year anniversary at the company, Helena invites Pedro to dinner at an elegant restaurant. He accepts, surprised by the personal invitation after so much time away from work. At the restaurant, Helena is already waiting for him at a discreet table. She is elegant as always, but something in her gaze seems different, more relaxed. "Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Helena." "Please, Pedro. After a year, I think you can just call me Helena." Pedro smiles, still a little uncomfortable with the idea. "I'll try Helena." They order food and talk about work and ongoing projects. Helena seems genuinely interested in Pedro's opinion on various subjects. During dessert, Helena finally reveals the real reason for the dinner. "Pedro, I didn't call you here just to celebrate your anniversary at the company. No, I want to make you a proposal." Pedro waits, curious. "As you know, I've been managing Reed Estrella for many years. I built this company from scratch with a lot of effort, and he did an admirable job." "Thank you, but I'm getting older, and I'm starting to think about succession." Pedro almost chokes on his dessert. "Succession?" "Yes. I don't have children, as you know, and few in the company share my vision for the future." "Helena, I don't understand." "I am creating a leadership development program. A select group of young talents who will be prepared to take on strategic positions in the coming years. I want you to be the first participant." Pedro is speechless. "I'm not promising that you'll be my direct successor," Helena clarifies. "But I'm offering you a path to get there if you prove that you deserve it." I don't know what to say. "Don't say anything now. Think about the proposal. It will be a difficult path. It will demand a lot from you." "Why me? There are more experienced, more qualified people." Helena smiles tenderly. "Pedro, when Mr. Augusto gave me my first opportunity, I asked the same question. Do you know what he told me?" Peter shakes his head. He said, "Helena, experience is acquired. Character is not." And he was right. Pedro reflects on the words. "When I saw him that day in the rain, helping a stranger without expecting anything in return, I saw the same thing Mr. Augusto saw in me years ago. I saw integrity. I saw compassion. I saw natural leadership. I don't even know how to thank you for your trust. Give thanks by living up to it. Continue being who you are, but grow, learn, develop." Pedro nods, excited. "I promise I won't disappoint you." "I know you won't." Helena raises her glass. A toast to the future. Pedro raises his glass too. To the future. At that moment, Pedro thinks about how his life has completely changed in just 1 year. From a young waiter with financial difficulties to a rising executive, all because he decided to help a stranger in the rain. The next morning, Pedro visits the Cantina Italiana restaurant for the first time in many months. He is elegantly dressed, but his smile remains the same. Carlos welcomes him with an affectionate hug. "Pedro, what a nice surprise." Marcia leaves the kitchen when she hears a familiar voice and also hugs him, with tears in her eyes. "Look at you," she says, "all important now." Peter laughs. "Nothing. I'm still the same." Sit down, Carlos insists. "I'll bring you a coffee. Or would you prefer champagne? I think we have a bottle saved for special occasions." "Coffee is great, Mr. Carlos." Pedro tells him about his progress in the company, about his grandmother recovering, about his studies almost completed. Carlos and Marshall listen with evident pride. "So," says Carlos, "in the end, that delay in helping that lady was the best thing that ever happened to you." Pedro smiles thoughtfully. "It was. But do you know what I understood after all this?" "What?" "That I didn't help Mrs. Helena that day because I needed or deserved something in return. I helped her because it was the right thing to do. And if it had been anyone else, I would have done the same." Marcia wipes away a tear. "That's why you deserve all the best, my son." Pedro finishes his coffee and stands up. "I have to go. I have an important meeting today." "Come back anytime," says Carlos. "Your table will always be reserved." Pedro smiles and promises to return. As he leaves the restaurant, he stops for a moment on the sidewalk, looking up at the sky. It starts to rain lightly, soft drops that refresh the air. Pedro smiles, opens his new umbrella, and continues on his way, thinking about how sometimes the simplest moments can change an entire life. At the office, Helena is waiting for him for the first meeting of the Leadership Development Program. Upon entering the room, Pedro sees two other young people, also selected for program. "Welcome," says Helena. "You have been chosen because you have demonstrated not only competence, but also human qualities essential to true leaders." Pedro looks at Helena with gratitude and determination. He knows that the road ahead will be long and difficult, but he is ready to face it. From a simple act of kindness, an opportunity was born that changed his life. And now, he is determined to do the same for others in the future, continuing the chain of generosity that Helena once started with him. "Let's begin," says Helena, and the future opens up before them, full of possibilities. "Yendi,